order the July 11th, 2023 meeting of the Midtown Redevelopment Board. Have a roll call.
Mr. Sean Collins,
Here.
Ms. Tangela Hardy, Ms. Joan Shepherd,
Here.
Ms. Renee Richardson,
Here.
Ms. Kathy Washington,
Present.
Pastor Nathan McGullough, Ms. Davita Bonner,
Present.
Mr. Lynn Thompson.
Good afternoon. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I forgot to mention to the secretary that Ms. Hardy did email to say that she's not going to be here. I did not hear from Pastor McGullough. He said he would be here, so hopefully he's on his way.
Praise
Member McGullough is here.
the Lord
We
heard
have
my
four,
prayer.
correct? We have four.
We do indeed, sir.
Fantastic. We're gonna have invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Member Washington, church is with us. Please stand. Again, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be in the midst of these individuals concerned about the day-to-day operations of our area, Midtown. We ask that you be in the midst, that whatever is said tonight will be done to the glory of your name, but also to the learning and the comprehension of each person present. In your mighty name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to make an administrative change. The approval of the minutes should say June 13th, 2023. It says June 11th. So with that, I will entertain a motion for the approval. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussions, corrections, omissions, additions? Being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We'll start with the staff report, beginning with the police report. Captain Conte, you're on deck.
Good afternoon, members of the board.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me. And as we discussed during last month's meeting, due to the transition to the new report writing system, I will not have any concrete statistics as far as percentages and that sort of thing. I do have a rough number that I did want to pass along, but it will not reflect any increases or decreases in crimes, at least for the beginning. So we should expect, hopefully within a month or two, is when we'll actually start getting some concrete statistics. Since our last meeting, from June 18th until about July the 5th, we've had approximately 2,000 calls for service. We've had over 431 reports written, approximately 170 traffic stops, 176 citations. We've had 53 felony arrests, 35 misdemeanor arrests, and from June 18th until July 5th, we've had 31 reported violent crimes and 41 reported property crimes. So that's just a rough ballpark. Unfortunately, that's what I'm limited and able to provide you. I did reach out to our crime data analyst, and unfortunately, like I said, you know, that's kind of the limitation what we have right now. But as far as everything else, everything is status quo, and fortunately, we're moving forward. Is there anything of note or anything I can answer?
Anybody have any questions? I do have. Were you able to find out, because you were saying the last time, now you have the capabilities of looking at the information countywide?
Unfortunately, all of the municipalities, to include the county, have transitioned to this new report writing system. So we're actually all on the same boat. So I won't be able to provide any statistics for anything.
Oh, yeah, but I'm saying
That
it's available.
that's a possibility.
Right.
I just have to confirm that with our analysts to make sure that we're able to get their information.
Right.
Because I would imagine some of it would be deemed confidential. But due to us all operating under the same report writing system, that should be feasible.
Yeah.
So that is something that I would like to bring forward and at least provide the information to the members
Just
of
an
the board.
update, what I was referring to is that right now we're getting statistics compared to the last reporting period for the city of Daytona Beach only. We have the ability now to look at other municipalities in the county for comparative purposes to see where we're standing as far as our crimes and our arrest and solving of the crimes as well.
We'll be able to see their raw data as far as their calls for service and their Part 1 crimes, but I don't know if our analysts will have the ability to compare it or make a comparison from ours compared to theirs.
Are they a GIS person?
They should be. I can tell you I am not, sir.
Trust me, they can do it. That's not a question, that's a fact. They can do it.
Then I believe
It's
in them
literally
as
just
well.
some button pushing.
Yeah.
So if it's in the database, they can find it.
Question, if I can. So if, like the data since July 1, when the open carry rules changed, right? If I'm saying that correctly, about the firearms.
Permitless carry.
What is it?
Permitless carry.
Permitless carry, right. So technically, 30 days out, August 1st, how will you be able to track that data in terms of any increase in the crime rate? You guys will be able to find that. I'm sure you can extrapolate that some kind of way, but
The way our data is analyzed is it won't break it down specifically to the permitless carry. It would be an additional component, but typically our violent crimes are broken down into domestic violence, aggravated battery, robberies, sexual offenses, homicides, that sort of thing. I would say fortunately we haven't seen any significant impact or increase as far as gun violence as it pertains to permitless carry. The biggest issue that we have is, the theft of firearms because of negligent owners. And then fortunately, thank God, we did have a decrease as far as the violence goes. We did have a rough couple of weeks,
Right.
but fortunately we're trending significantly better.
okay.
I have a question, if you don't mind. I'm curious, with this new database that you're working on, that's being implemented, are we going to be able to, compare statistics for each criminal division, each category, in the different zones that make up Daytona Beach to see how we are in comparison to additional zones?
Yes.
Okay.
So typically for the CompStat data, you would see it anyway. I'm not sure if that sheet was also provided to you, but you'll see a breakdown. As far as law enforcement goes, our zones are broken from 41 to 48 on the west side of the city.
Okay.
The Midtown area encompasses 42, 43, and a small portion of 44. So you would see the specific zone categories, and then it'll give you a breakdown. It'll actually highlight what is considered the hot zone, meaning that's had the most increase in Part 1 crimes. So it should be the same information.
Okay.
We hadn't been receiving that. Before I retired, I would actually go out when they were having CompStat meetings at the police station. I would go out to them every month, and that was very, very. It was good for me, but it was also for my supervisor there at the at Bethune-Cookman, and I shared it with the chief of security, who then started making sure that there was a person from security there. The information that's given in that CompStat meeting is priceless.
Absolutely. And I know it is the chief's intention, once we have some safeguards in place at the police department, that it will resume and it'll be open to the public again. Unfortunately, until we have those safeguards in place for the safety of the building and the employees inside, that's just not feasible right now.
Any more questions, comments for Captain? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Kirk?
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
So we also are working with a new system. So it's actually front and back, but this is kind of a generic, what I was able to come up with on the fly with the help of Ms. Tolliver. And gentleman by the name of Trenton. He was able to get this pretty quickly for me. So it just shows, and I'm not sure exactly how exact this is, but this would be for the month of June. 13 cases, it says, were opened in the month of June in the Midtown redevelopment area. It has a little description on one side, and then it has the address on the other. So I will work on that this month to try to get a better notice for you. I did have some information regarding 941 Lockhart. Would you like me to go over that now, or do you want me to wait till it comes up? Because I think it's in the...
It's on the agenda. I'd like to do it in the order that it is.
Okay.
We'll have it separate.
Okay.
It's
Well,
okay with everybody? You know what she's talking about? Okay. So,
does anybody have any questions for me? Oh, and I was able to get in 935.
Were you?
I was, with another unfortunate tenant that unfortunately got tricked in there. So.
Yeah.
And she did tell me we should listen to the neighbor.
for the sake of everybody that's not on the insides, give a little brief, synopsis of what the conversation that two of you all are having. So.
Okay, so there is a property owner that owns several properties in Central Florida, and of course some in Daytona, and it's come to our attention that they're misleading by advertising the properties for rent with pictures, and then they're not allowing the tenants to see the property until after they pay large deposits first month and large amounts of money, and then the keys are left after the deposit's made, and then they go and the property's nothing like the pictures, and it's pretty much unlivable conditions. So it's, to me, it's obviously it's not good, and I've been dealing with quite a few of the properties in the Midtown area. One we just mentioned at 935 South Martin Luther King. So the issue with that one was that the initial tenant that put in the complaint, she left, so we had to have access. Well, another tenant fell victim to that scam, I would say, and they contacted me while they still had access to the property, so I was able to go inside and take a lot of pictures. So now we'll have a good code case on that property. So the violations, the only thing I can do is cite them for the violations, and if they don't correct them, then they'll get a fine, which would result in a lien on the property.
Directing this to city attorney. Why isn't that, some kind of legal violation?
Well, you're asking whether it's a criminal violation, and it may be. And I had a discussion about this with Mr. Sykes, the head of code enforcement. I know he was going to talk with somebody from the PD about it. It may be a problem of proof for some of the reasons that you were referring to, where the tenant can't stay there and has to go, and that's your witness of the fraud,
Okay.
if that of the alleged fraud.
Right.
And to be honest, I'm not privy to the process that the police department undertakes to determine whether to arrest people, or the state attorney, takes in deciding whether to prosecute. But you have to have, the evidence that you found was really just of the code violations. The criminal aspect, if there was one, had to do with the misleading or allegedly misleading photographs. So I don't actually know how many witnesses they would need to bring charges against one of these property owners. But I think, as you know, I did some research a couple of months ago, and there were widespread newspaper reports about at least one of the principals of one of these companies, and I shared that information with code enforcement, and I assume that was shared with the police department as well.
My mind's going a million different directions right now. Why wouldn't that be some kind of, I mean, I'm thinking, I'm not an attorney, I'm just thinking, okay, your false advertisement, that's easy, that's a paper trail that's easy to follow, because they apparently got a website or something. What is it? How do
They
these people
advertise
find-
on Zillow
Yeah.
or Marketplace.
So that's
like
the
that.
beginning there. So you take that picture, that's evidence. Then you take the evidence of the picture that's there now. And then you throw on top of that, they can't get their money back once they're displeased. What am I missing? Right?
Yeah.
So isn't there like just a federal or a Florida statute says you're allowed to, what they call the lemon law? You can just, you get 30 days to change your mind?
Yeah, you know, I don't know that what we're talking about in this case is a violation of a state statute regarding truth in advertising specifically related to landlord-tenant. But there are crimes in the criminal code relating to, you know, fraud and the inducement, where, you know, you basically obtain somebody's money under false pretenses. And again, you know, whether this set of facts would meet that crime, whether there's witnesses who will testify to it, whether the police have resources to, you know, enforce it, and whether the state attorney's office will, you know, support that. It depends on a lot of factors, you know.
You know what comes to mind?
Yeah.
January 6 hearings. The Congress basically made recommendations to DOJ, right? Why can't we do that to the state attorney? Why can't we do that? At least we've tried something. Now we've done it. It's off our list. We've made the state attorney, because no matter what the police department does, nothing happens until the prosecution takes place. You can't do anything. You just pointing out the issue. The one that can enforce is the state attorney's office. What am I missing?
I think the police enforce initially, you know, they make the decision whether to arrest.
Okay.
And then the state attorney's office decides whether to prosecute or not.
So
And usually they work, you know, hand in glove and make those decisions together.
I know you're inundated with stuff
Yeah.
as a city attorney,
Yeah.
and I'm just one of 7, 8 members on this board, but I envision a recommendation coming from this board to have us a letter written from the city attorney to the state attorney saying we need to do something about it. I can't see into the future. I just kind of see that somewhere.
I just wanted to comment, is there any kind of coordination that you would have with the police department that they can start an investigation? Is that where it's all triggered from?
That I don't know. I have been recently. I have been. I found out a little bit more information in their in the lease agreements. They do say, you know, they're very careful about, you know, the pictures may not be, you know, as is.
Representative.
You know, there's a lot of stuff written to cover the all bases in the lease.
Yeah, my understanding is that some doctors that are landowners, correct?
I think one is a real estate and one was a doctor.
Yeah.
I did find a new Channel 9 Investigates as recent as February of 23. I hadn't seen that one, so I did forward that to my manager, Mr. Sykes. And it's all over Central Florida. But they go, if you were to Google it, they go over how it says in the lease, you know, and people aren't reading the lease carefully. And so they're kind of like, you know, covering themselves on this. So
I just have one thing. I just think that the people that select these properties are very desperate to find somewhere to live. They are very desperate. And even after the situation happened when the money was gone and the people wouldn't give the people back the money, somebody just pulled up the other day to rent that. And I ran outside. I was like, oh my God, please tell me you did not put money in portal.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, we didn't. But the house is not locked. They have not come back to that house. They have not put the lock on the house. And the way that the people that lost their money, or I don't even know if they got it back yet, they wouldn't even give them the code or the key. until, even though they had their money, they wouldn't give them the code or the key until they went and turned the water on, had the water turned on.
Yep, she told me that
Yeah,
the last.
they wouldn't.
tenant.
They wouldn't even let them get in. So the guy went through the window, and that's how I saw them. My daughter said somebody's breaking in, somebody's going through the window. So we went, out and stuff. And by this time, they were coming out of the thing. But it was just horrible that they lost $4,000.
Yeah.
$4,000.
And they told me they were going to the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
After they left.
Yeah.
So
And it was sight. They always do sight unseen. They never let anybody in, and they won't let you. A lot of people can't see inside until you actually put that money in the portal, and then when it's in there, they won't give it back. And that's what it just behooves me how they could continue to do it, and it's nothing that anybody can do to stop that. But these people are very desperate to stay, just to find anywhere to stay.
well, because they're offering it a little bit lower
Yeah.
than, because the rents are really high right now.
Yeah.
So they're like a 3-bedroom house for $1,000.
Yeah.
People are like, oh.
But if you read, and I tell everybody that comes there, read down past at the end. At the end is where all of the fees. All of the fees, and it will not be $900. By
Right.
the time you get finished, it's $1,700 a month, because they attach $125 to each adult every month. They have no utilities. They have no appliances in there. They charge you every month for the appliances.
Yep.
It's atrocious what they're doing, and I just don't understand how they can continue to do that. But it is families with children
Yep.
that are
Always.
trying to get into places, especially this place.
I do know, I'm sorry to interrupt, I do know that's against the law, to rent a place to live without any appliances. There has to be some means to sustain a family, a refrigerator and a stove at the bare minimum.
I have a case, actually, it was in the hearing in front of the special magistrate today, same owners, different property. And, I was called by a mother with her 4 children. She's already vacated, but I've made them, get the stove. They tried to pass off a stove that didn't work. So I have been trying to be very thorough, citing every single thing and not passing them until, it's as perfect as it could possibly be. So that's, but who's to say after everything's fixed, they don't go in there and remove, the stove or whatever.
Yeah. More than likely, they probably do.
You had mentioned Channel 9. Is there other media resources that can be put into play about this? It's a plague. It's a plague on our city.
Yeah.
Do you know of any other resources in the media that would help put a spotlight on these people?
I mean, I personally think it would be, Channel 9's already aware of it, so maybe that would be.
Wesh does also.
Yeah, and then Wesh, they're local, Claire Metz, that might be. someone
I
to
know
contact.
Claire.
Because it could further exacerbate, people now with the way times are hard and things, when they lose their money, you don't know what kind of, crime that they
Oh,
may
right.
commit as well. So,
Good
you're
point.
adding fuel to the fire, and just hopefully it will not get to that level. But because of desperation in those cases, you don't know now. We can see the psyche of our society every day on the news. So you don't know, some people may move on as they're doing. That's good, but you don't know what can happen down the road if it continues for a long period of time. And that could be something that could really be an ugly mire on our community as well. So
I'm going to ask just a general question from generically the staff. Do y'all see any recommendation that we can kind of put a period on this right here?
I mean, I would want to know if the police department has any general advice, for people. I will say that under Florida's Residential Landlord-Tenant Act, attorney's fees are available if you prevail in suit. It may be that some of these practices violate that act. I'm not sure about the utilities offhand or the appliances. But I think the logistics problem is you have a lot of people who don't have the resources to stay the course. So I think public information is good. It sounds like a lot of people who are being subjected to this practice are from out of the area.
Yeah. They do a lot of sight unseen, and people look at the pictures online and they look at it and they go ahead and do what they need to do. And then when they get there, it's not what it's supposed to be, kind of thing. So it's definitely always that. It's always that.
Yep.
So you're not allowed to look at the property before you deposit your money?
That's what every tenant has told
No.
me.
They won't give you the code.
So-
They won't give you the key. They won't open it up. Now you can walk around it and you can try to peek in, but you really cannot see what you need to see in order to see if it's an actual decent place.
You had something, Captain Conte? Yeah.
Again. As far as the fraud goes, I would need a little bit more information to see specifically what we could do moving forward. Just listening over the past couple of weeks and the prior meetings, I would imagine that they are insulating themselves very well, you know, layering themselves and putting property managers in front, so they have that, you know, that hands-off approach, you know, where that culpability may not necessarily legally lay on them. And then obviously the stipulation on their site as far as, you know, pictures are not as exact as they depict. But as far as like some of the appliances, the utilities and that sort of thing, it would fall unfortunately more on civil law and not criminal law for us to take legal action and potentially arrest or at least file a criminal affidavit against them. We would have to prove, you know, the criminal aspect of it, that they knowingly, and it sounds like we're very, very close. The only other thing that I would recommend, and this is honestly just, you know, off the top of my head, is the police department does a lot on social media. And the world as it is right now consumes this information. So my recommendation would be to, you know, to code enforcement is you can use social media as well. I think it would do two things. First, it would let the community know all the hard work that they're doing. And it gives them, not that they're looking for these accolades, but it actually gives them an opportunity to say, hey, look, we're addressing the concerns in the community. This is what we're doing. We're working on this project. And then you could also potentially, depending on the legal status, is also educate the public on what steps they should take. What are some red flags that they can see? I mean, it's unfortunately, it's quite disgusting that, you know, people with, I would imagine, some money in their pocket are victimizing those who are desperate, you know, for the sole purpose of, you know, soulful gain, you know, selfish gain. So that would be my only recommendation as far as, you know, the social media aspect. Because a lot of times legally, there'll be some challenges because they've layered themselves, they've protected themselves. And as long as you don't have, you know, any kind of legal potential implications, maybe you can't necessarily specifically identify them. You know, that would be a legal question. You don't want to slander anybody. But, you know, at least giving some information out there for the general public to be aware of. Maybe flagging their ads on these websites. Because I would imagine that Zillow and some of these better known companies, they don't want to be associated with that sort of business.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
And let me follow up on what the officer said. When you're talking about criminal prosecution, the standard is very high. It's beyond all reasonable doubt. And when you're talking about a crime like fraud, you have to prove intent. It's not a reckless standard. It's not a negligent standard. It's I intended to rip you off. And so getting back to the point you made about the leases, they include this language in the leases and their advertisements to point to say, a careful reader would have found that. I didn't intend to rip anybody off. Intent can be very hard to show. And again, intent beyond all reasonable doubt. Does that mean a crime hasn't occurred? I don't have enough information. But I can tell you that those types of crimes can be difficult to prosecute when you have some facts that include things like those disclaimers that it sounds like are in play. But I mean, it could be worth investigating, and I think that what I said last meeting still applies. If you see somebody who thinks they've been ripped off like that, they have to go to the police and talk to them.
Yeah.
That's what they have to do. Or they have to hire an attorney and pursue civil remedies The standard of proof is lower. There is an obligation of good faith in all contracts in residential landlord tenancies, and there's attorney's fees available. So my assumption is that in the marketplace, there may be some attorneys willing to take on these cases. I don't know who those attorneys would be, and it wouldn't be within my purview to recommend anybody in particular. But again, I think we all have to acknowledge that the people who appear to be being preyed upon, they have limited resources, including the ability to stick it out and, be here from start to finish. Again, if you're seeing somebody who this is happening to, you have to encourage them to find an attorney if they can find one, but also go complain to the police.
Yeah, one last question for you. When you buy a car, a used car, whatever, they have the little as-is thing. Do you still have 30 days after that?
I don't know, and I thought the lemon law only provides 3 days, but that's something I'd have to
Still a
look at.
window?
I think the
there a
lemon
window?
law only applies to new cars, but I don't know the answer to
Say that
that.
again?
I think the lemon law only applies to new cars,
I hope not, but
but you're asking me something that I would need to research.
you understand what I'm talking about? Even with the contract,
I think it is.
when you buy one of those cars that says as-is, that's it, but still the law has given you that window that says, yeah, you signed that as-is, but I still want to back out of the deal in 72 hours, whatever that is.
Well, and I don't know the exact details of the law, but let's assume that that's true. It's because the state legislature has stepped in to solve
Right.
that kind of sharp practices problem, and maybe this would take a legislative solution as well, because these types of activities might be very widespread, in a really hot housing market. We know that there have been complaints about this throughout Central Florida.
Now, are you fairly certain that the lemon law only applies to vehicles?
I'm familiar.
David, I saw you shake your head.
Yeah, my understanding, the lemon law applies to
Just cars.
I just Googled it and it says new cars only 2018 to 2022.
Okay.
New cars.
Okay. New cars.
Yep.
Wow. Boy, I tell you,
Unfortunately, there's no similar.
that makes no sense. Why would it hurt anything? Just say for anything you purchase.
Under traditional, what we call common law, the historical heritage that we grow out of, the premise was always buyer beware. You've heard that caveat emptor.
Right.
And over time, of course, in response to some sharp practices, you see things like the lemon law. You see things like courts creating a common law under which the seller of a house who knows about latent defects is responsible for not disclosing them.
Yeah.
But that's based on a body of case law where people have litigated and the courts have, stepped in, or where legislatures have acted. I mean, our Landlord Residential Tenancy Act, is to some extent something that the legislature created to try to level the playing field a bit.
Can I ask staff to do this for me, the board? The Housing Authority now are allowing your Section 8 to go to renter properties outside of their ownership. I would think that they have some kind of, they've got something that they rely on in case they find a tenant that they put in a private house that don't meet their standards, even though they've already signed an agreement with the Housing Authority. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
I think that is absolutely germane to what we're talking about now. It's perfect. So they may have already done the research on how they can back out of a lease that they've signed with Sean Collins, who owns a rental property. They put their Section 8 tenant in there, and they find out this ain't working out. We need to get out of this agreement.
Well, if you have a Section 8 tenant, then you also have a landlord who has their own contract with the Housing Authority. That in those circumstances, the landlord could be in breach of. And the tenant can, has the right to report those failures to the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority has some right to step in. But I'm not aware offhand that any of these houses are under contract with the Housing Authority as Section 8 houses.
Well, they would. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
You've
You're
answered the
suggesting
question.
it's
You're
a
saying
model?
that they couldn't even, Deshaun Collins with a property couldn't even get a tenant unless he's already signed an agreement with the housing authority, say he will do X, Y, Z. And all the water's running, there's no rusted pipes, there's no asbestos, all that stuff. That would be in that contract with the housing authority before they even come and look at my house that I want to rent.
Right.
So I get that. Okay,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you know, I don't think that we would be able to adopt and enforce a law that would require every owner of a rental property to, say, sign an agreement with the city to do something similar before they rented a house, because people have property rights.
But how would you be infringing on your property rights by saying if the tenant doesn't like it, they get to get out of it in 3 days?
I think that's the kind of action that you would want a state legislature to take.
I got you. Well, we beat the horse to death. You was gonna say something, Michelle? I'm sorry.
I was just going to add to the discussion that there is an annual rental license that the city already has in place. And after the meeting tomorrow sometime, I'll get with Ms. Kirk to just see if I can look myself to see if they've registered the property for annual rental license. That's another violation, and she may have the answer already.
Wait a
I
minute.
believe it's every 2 years they get an inspection.
Biannual.
Right, so a lot can happen, within that 2 year
I don't even know if
period.
they have one. I've not looked yet to see if they have an existing rental license.
Some of the properties, do, that, like one in particular has a valid rental license. But I'm sure the inspection, was at least a year ago. I know one of them's expired, and I'm not 100% sure on 935. I'd have to double check. So they are very familiar with that. They need, the group is familiar that they need a rental license, but, every 2 years is when the inspection happens, so,
Well, I appreciate the research you all done.
thank you.
935, South Martin Luther King.
Yeah. Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Tolliver. you're on.
Before I go up, did we do a vote on the minutes from last month? I know you mentioned the date needed to be corrected, but did we actually vote on the minutes?
Yeah.
We did, okay, I must be in
Yeah,
twilight.
it was a motion by,
I'm back in the squirrel
I was waiting for it.
we did it. All those in favor?
That's a sanity check for me.
I won't say what.
Sound like you got a little Miss Washington right there with you. That one.
I'm sitting here waiting.
So you're not alone.
All right, I came down to do the presentation for projects. Michelle Tolliver, the project manager for Midtown. The one thing I wanted to point out was the upcoming chance for redemption, and I'm going to ask the secretary to help me hand these out, additional flyers. This is the new professional theater in the city of Daytona Beach presenting a chance for redemption. The show times, as it says on the flyer, the 26th, there are 2 shows, and on the 27th, they have a 3 o'clock matinee.
I'll pass them down. I'll take some extras.
And this is just a story about Midtown, as Mr. Thomas shared with us when this idea was presented for a joint venture with the city. And also, I didn't include it in the mail this time, but there is a Public Works project list. I believe it is back toward the end of the project list. I asked Public Works to include this, and this may be music to Mr. Lewis' ears, because he approached the city mayor as well as the city manager with this idea, along with other residents. But there is an electric car charger project that is going on, and one of the locations, of course, is Midtown at Cypress Park Midtown Center. This is a project that they've identified based on feedback from residents, and I remember Mr. Lewis emailing me early on, I believe it was in 2021, with the idea of having more than just one, but the idea of having electric vehicle chargers in Midtown. I wanted to point that out as a project that is slated for Midtown, along with other locations.
And where is it in Midtown?
The Cherry Center. The Cherry Center is where Cypress Street Park is. It was renamed Midtown Cultural Center, and it's
Yeah.
the Cherry Center.
No, oh,
Yep, yep. That's the location where the charging center is tentatively scheduled, because this is not finalized. This is where they've identified it as of this report. And the third item is this big bundle of stuff here. In conversation with the chair when I was preparing the agenda, he wanted a copy of the MLK corridor study. And I mentioned to him that there are other studies. Well, in the essence of time, I was not able to copy all 6, but for the request that he made, he asked that I make copies for each board member so that you can look at it. And one of the things I want to caution you on is the date on this corridor study. Some of the zoning districts have changed from the time that this corridor study from November 14th, 2006 was done. Some of the zoning for, all of the zoning for Midtown is no longer residential or business, so forth and so on. They start with MRBs. RDMs, not MRBs. That's this board. They start with redevelopment for Midtown. You will not see that in here because as of 2015, the Land Development Code was updated to identify Midtown areas in our zoning, and you won't see that in here. So I made copies as I was asked to, but use it sparingly because it is outdated. There is also an Orange Avenue corridor study. There is also a Dr. Bethune study, and Dr. Bethune Boulevard study. There's a George Ingram study, and I'm sure there's one more that I'm missing. But these studies were done at different times, and I believe this is the oldest of all of them. But you have to understand the date. The relevance of it is it has pertinent information for ideas on this particular corridor. Those ideas are still pertinent. Keep that in mind.
That's great.
And that is all, unless anyone has some questions.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Sir,
I do know with the city expanding, and I also know that with the districts changing, with commission, what will that have inevitably any impact on any of our boundaries? I do know that's an entirely different process.
Yep, it's separate and apart from the boundaries that Zone 6 covers did not change any of the boundaries for Midtown. No, Midtown's boundary stays the same. I didn't see the exact presentation in person, but from what I saw on the screen when I was looking at it from home, I did not see any boundaries that affected Midtown
But
or Zone 6
Our representation,
and Zone 5.
our commissioners
Not
may
by.
change somewhat, right?
No. Well, I'll have to look because the northwest or northeast portion of the boundary for Midtown near George Ingram, I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head. I was thinking in terms of Zone 6. There's a Zone 3 that's in Midtown and Zone 2 that's in Midtown, as well as Zone 6. And I can't remember if Zone 2 or Zone 3 is affected. I'd have to look.
Pushes forward towards the speedway too, doesn't it?
Yes, but yeah, Midtown stops at Dr. King Boulevard.
Right.
But I don't know if Zone 3 or Zone 2 is affected by the redistricting. I'd have to check.
Go further west.
And that would be Commissioner Strickland and Commissioner May.
anybody got any questions? We got one, more than one. On the electric vehicles, do you know what funding source that is? I see the 990,000, but do you know where it's coming from?
No, I do. I know that it is not CRA funding. I know that, but I do not know where the funding is coming from.
The reason I ask, because I like the project, and it's a low-hanging fruit as far as the cost. I'm the city's representative on the MPO Citizens Advisory Committee, and this project or similar project would be perfect for something to be funded by FDOT and the MPO. You're talking about agencies with budgets in the Bs.
Yeah.
This $90,000 is interest
Put it back in the
half a day.
pocket.
Yeah.
Drop in a bucket.
So I don't want to double dip. Well, I don't mind even if it is coming from them, I don't mind going back and get some more, at least requesting some more. So I definitely need to know if this coming out of general revenue or this is a project that we fed into already the MPO process to get this funded. Because this is ideal for the MPO. It's perfect, you know. So please let me know as soon as you can. You got all my contact information, so
Yep.
let me know. We're meeting next week. We meet on Tuesdays following our meetings. Or I can get that information before our meeting next Tuesday. It'll be great.
Okay.
Yeah. Second thing, Ms. Thompson, do you know that I'm going to be there, but do you know your thing competes with Bruce? I don't know if you know that.
No.
That's right.
Well, I think.
I got tickets for Bruce, but I'm going to come here too.
You're talking about on the 20 what?
He'll be there for the whole weekend. The 20, I just looked it up, but I'll tell you.
I venture to say we got a.
He's the
smaller-
25th and the 26th.
I think we got a smaller venue, and we're going to an entirely different audience too.
I'll be at both.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. I love this though. Just want to give you that little food for thought. Yeah.
We got Ken Thomas.
That's a drop the mic right there. Yeah. That's drop the mic. I love it. On the corridor studies, we're talking about what, 10 years old? Yeah. Well, not 10 years, but well, it's more than that.
Yeah, it was more than that.
206, almost 20.
Yeah,
Yeah.
17 years.
Oh, gosh.
Staff.
Too old.
And this is like a where are we now, correct? The study.
The study showed where there was a need for certain things within the Midtown area in the study. It identifies a lot of growth and development for Midtown. That's what the corridor stood. And it says along that corridor, this needs to happen based on your plans.
Yeah, and that's when I say where are we now, it's in relationship to the master plan.
Yes.
Right, so it's just saying, how are we doing since we adopted? So, given that, what do you think?
I honestly can't tell you, Mr. Thomas, because this has been a whirlwind of a month, and we just into July.
No,
All I-
well, I guess I'm
You
gonna
want a
ask a direct
status
question.
update on how does the corridor plan relate to where we are today? And I'm telling you, I can't tell you that. Just like I asked y'all, did y'all vote tonight 20 minutes ago? I cannot tell you. I have not measured it based on anything other than I copied it and passed it out.
Ms. Tolliver, that's not
And
the
we
question.
thank you.
That's not the question I'm asking. I'm just saying,
We can go home
when
and read.
I don't expect you to know where we are in relationship to the master plan.
No, the corridor study, yeah.
I'm saying that's what the core study does.
Yes.
It says where are you in relationship to what you plan to do in the master plan. And what I'm saying, that point is what this is 2023, so we're talking about 17 years ago.
Yes, sir.
I'm saying, and I'm the first one to say we studied and ad infinitum, but
Yes.
we need to do something to see where we are in relationship to our master plan, you know.
And the fun part, just to interject, everything in the plan we're doing as fast as we can, like acquiring property, like trying to come up with funding sources for small business owners, homeowners, property owners. It's a lot And a lot of it we're doing.
Right, and if you remember, I've always said, I've said this, and go back and look at the minutes.
Yes.
Y'all done a lot. The problem is people don't know about it. I'm trying to help you out. I'm trying to help you out. The purpose of me saying where we're now is that I want people to understand we are a lot further than we think we
Yes.
are.
Yeah. Yes.
So this ain't something to point out your deficiencies. This is something to show you've been doing some work. And I ain't talking about a whole lot of effort. You can put $20,000 aside and let some consultant come in and just match up what you've done, look at the Public Works Department, look at everything, and publish and let folk know that Midtown been busy, damn it. Excuse my language. We've been busy. So I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm trying to pump y'all up.
Well, I'm one
This
of those
study
that
is
I don't just.
2006.
I follow what you're saying. My comment comes because, like you deal with the needs plan, I don't deal with just pulling stuff out the air. If you ask me a question, I want to give you an honest answer. Of course, we're doing a lot. That's where my response is coming from. Not that we're not doing anything, by no means, but I'm not one of these that just, pull stuff out your butt, out your eye. I just don't do that.
Factually document.
Yeah.
I present information, and it's something that I don't just say you can see it. So, but I understand what you're saying. A lot has happened in Midtown in a very short amount of time. Yes,
Yeah.
that is true.
And we just need to pump it up, let everybody know we've been busy. Y'all been busy and stuff. That's all I'm saying, But anyway, all right, everybody's good? All right. There is no presentation on item 7. We will go to old business now. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Washington, just give a little quick, 1 minute or so synopsis, and then we'll bring up Ms. Kirk to give a status report on what's been going on with that.
I actually don't have an update. I called.
I was just talking about how did we get to this point? Just explain what the issue was. That's all I'm saying.
Oh,
Yeah, that's all I'm
how did we get to this?
Yeah.
Oh, me and my big mouth. I made a comment about the lot next door to me. I had the house torn down because the man was killed. And actually, the man was in the house 3 months, and I was calling the city because I kept smelling something. I didn't know what it was. Wow. And the police finally came over one night, broke in, and there he was on the floor, had been on the floor for 3 months.
Oh, my goodness.
And then after they got him out, the scent just continued to go because then it was wide open. Everything in the house was molded from the ceiling to the floor because they left the water running. The water ran for 3 months.
Oh, my goodness.
And we kept seeing, different ones in the neighborhood kept seeing the water. We didn't know who to report it. Well, I knew there was nobody there. I didn't have a number, but I knew the closest person to him lived on Beachside. She taught school. It took us from October until February to locate her. And then they came over, and that family actually cleaned out the house. And then I asked the city to please tear it down because it was a nuisance to me and everybody in the neighborhood. And it's an eyesore because the grass is as tall as my knees. I mean, it's thick, and there could be snakes in there. And the kids play outside, I think about the kids because I can stay in the house a month and it doesn't bother me. But I think about the kids in the neighborhood on the bicycles that might stop and talk to one another. Right. And my concern was whose responsibility was it? Because the man that owned the house was a Vietnamese. He had fought in the Vietnamese War. He and two other friends, they thought they had citizenship. They found out they did not have citizenship, but no one gave him information on how to get in citizenship. So he spoke very broken English. So it was like he worked.
Stayed below the radar.
And stayed below the radar, right. Mm-hmm. Watched my house when I wasn't there, took the name of the color of the car, what kind of car it was, the license plate. I knew whether it was a man or a woman and what they were wearing almost down to their underwear by the time I got back home because he stood in his window and watched. And I just felt he was due it. It took them 2 years to contact his family in Vietnam. And when they got back to me, they said The family had to walk 5 miles to a telephone just to respond to the people. It took them 3 years before they even buried him.
Well.
And I just want something done because in our area, they're good at saying we don't keep our properties up. And everybody in my neighborhood get their lawns cut every week. And this one piece is there with the grass being this high. And if there's a way we can, I said I'd like to purchase it. Give somebody some information where we can get it off the tax rolls. But
Put it back
nothing,
on the tax roll, yeah.
yeah, nothing is being said at all.
Well, I think Ms. Kirk has an update, and we'll go from there.
Okay, hello.
Hey.
Okay, so just to bounce off what you spoke about, there was I had a code case on it in 2021, which resulted in a lien. During that time, it was brought to the condemnation inspector, and he condemned the property, which the city did demolish the property, which resulted in another lien against the property. There are also, prior to those two cases, there were a couple of lot clearance, small liens. I spoke with the vacant lot inspector, Mark Bostwick, regarding this property. He has a vacant lot case, which, the owner, as we know, is deceased, and we know the situation. So we still have to follow the protocol. So my idea, just for a temporary suggestion, was to speak with the vacant lot inspector about, because the city doesn't do the lot clearance. We don't have that program anymore. But there's been a couple rare instances where this basically it comes out of the code enforcement budget that they've paid for a lot that hasn't, is not being maintained due to, extenuating circumstances such as this, where, I guess code funds the city to cut the lot. So this most likely I would think might be a candidate. That would be something I'd have to speak with the manager about. And then the other idea, which I haven't gotten around to, is if the city forecloses on it, then that could be where, like you mentioned, you might be interested in purchasing it. The city forecloses, however that process, that would be the legal department that would handle that. Mm-hmm. So I can put in an email and see, if that's something if it's a property that the city, a candidate for the city to foreclose on that property, and get back with you on that.
Okay.
But as of right now, we do have an open case on it, and then, so we are going to work on it. And I have spoken, like I said, I've spoken with Mr. Bostwick about perhaps it going, for the lot clearance kind of that we have now, which is not much, but
Yeah.
possible.
And the lady that lives on the property behind it, her property faces Kathy Street. Back at Ian blew a tree down in the yard. Well, where the root of the tree was in the ground, the fence that divided the two properties was on the roots. And the lady comes to me quite frequently, maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks, to see if I know who to contact, because she wanted to get the fence fixed. But before she gets the fence fixed, she wants the city to get that tree off her piece of property. And it's been a mess.
I understand, but I will stay on top of it, and at the next meeting, I'll have some more information for you with it.
Okay, I'd appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
All right, we'll get into item 8B, the board's 2023 needs plan. One of the things we ask the board members whose name is attached to each one of these particular sections of the needs plan is to follow up with a more, detailed in the sense of one and a half, 2-page narrative on exactly what that particular section is talking about. And Member Thompson started off with his dissertation that he put forth. And we were gracious about that. It's greatly written as usual, and expect nothing less than that. And so one of the things we agreed is that everybody whose name is attached to that particular section would come back and submit a narrative on what that was. We got something from Ms. Richardson, very well written, of course, on the housing, increased home ownership, and that was passed out to you ahead of today's meeting. I put together something for the small business investment. Now, Ms. Bonner is also on that, and I guess, and she passed out hers today as well. Now, what I'm going to ask is, yours is entitled, Ms. Don, yours is entitled Workforce Development.
Yes, and I did that because we both had the same initiative.
Okay.
And I know we talked about, I know from my angle, I was looking more at, what kind of things would be needed to be in place for that, as yours covered too.
Okay.
But I kind of specified it a little bit towards that because I think that a lot of the buildup in Midtown, once, more jobs and businesses are secured,
Okay.
that people having the adequate training and the resources to get ahead and to make a viable income through workforce development.
Okay. Then just to keep it clear, I guess mine was passed out on the agenda. What I put together was passed out in the agenda packet. You and I have to find a way to merge our,
Right. Yes.
for it to make sense. And I'm gonna make a recommendation that you be in charge of that.
Okay. That's fine.
Mr. Chair.
So, staff has my electronic version.
Okay.
Of what I put together. And I'm gonna ask staff to give you that.
Okay.
And whatever you come up with, I'm gonna love it.
Okay.
All I ask is
don't
that the measurables that I have in here, if we need, and I'm hoping you're cool with that.
Yeah.
The step
Yes,
one
you
and
got to
step
have
two.
the objectives and
Yeah,
the
we gotta have
measurable.
something that's
You have to have measurable.
Right.
Yeah.
And I read briefly what you put together because I just got it and stuff, but looks like what you have is measurable too. So that's all I'm asking.
Okay.
The language, the executive summary, if you will, play with it, however you
Okay.
want to. We just need to make sure that
It's a
if it's a
collaboration.
step 3 in
Right.
there, put it in there. It needs to be measurable. So merge your measurable into what I put together and give it to the staff and go. from there.
Okay.
Yeah. And just to kind of update, what we're looking for is, at the end of the day, the needs plan will not just be this. There will be a summary attached to that, that explains what each one of these 5 large areas are talking about. So with that, any questions, comments? Well, Ms. Hardy, remember, Magali, we still need yours.
Well, you haven't got mine. Oh,
Did you submit something?
I probably forgot to go out and send it.
Okay.
Never
There you
sent
go.
it.
So,
Okay.
so the only thing we need is Ms. Hardy's then.
Okay.
And then that's not something we have to approve, it's just for informational purposes. It'll just be automatically attached to the document. So,
But we also said that we have to have some recommendations
Yeah.
included in that narrative.
yeah, like, if you just use mine as an example, because
Right.
I'm familiar with mine. If you look at my narrative and you compare my steps, when you look at my narrative, you compare my step 1 and step 2 to what small business incubator has 2, 4, 6, 7 items in there. Pretty much, my step 1 and 2 encompasses each one of those. Using Mr. Thompson, he has 3 items in there. When you read his narrative, all 3 of those are covered in his recommendations. So that's what we're talking about. You know, so I don't know if you want to go a step further than that. Well, I guess we have to, but we kind of leaving it up to staff to, I guess, you know, because mine is very specific. I'm talking about, you know, $300,000 set aside for, you know, small business and, you know, incubator kind of program, things of that sort. That's, hopefully it'll happen, but if it doesn't, at least, you know, it's in there, you know. But the main thing was we've given staff something to work with.
Mm-hmm.
I would like, and it'll probably happen after my tenure's over, to have something that's more definitive and something that ends up being a recommended list that's passed on to the staff, that's passed on to the CRA, the Community Development Agency, which is the city commission, and they act on it. That's what I envision. We don't have time this year because we're almost halfway into the budget. They're about to approve the budget for fiscal year 2023, 2024. But that's what I would like this board to do sometime in their next calendar year, to have more definitive projects that they feed into the staff to end up in the city's budget, you know, even if it's somehow massaged and worked in, because that's our purpose. That's all I've been saying that for the longest. But anyway, it's enough on that. Any other questions and comments, recommendations on where we go?
I just want to say, Ms. Richardson, this is fascinating. I never realized there were so many different uses for these cargo containers. Absolutely fascinating.
Snaps.
Good evening.
All right, we're good with 8B. Good. All right, we'll go on to new business. 9A.
Sorry.
Where's that button? Discussion on the container homes and non-traditional, non-site built homes in Midtown. If you recall, staff gave us, I guess, a brief update on what the city's been thinking about and hearing about non-traditional homes in the city. And we thought it'd be a good idea to find out a little bit more about what container homes and other non-traditional site-built homes inventories out there. And to that end, staff passed out in the packet the information from Snap Space Solutions on, these are the tiny homes? Is this?
These are just containers.
Container homes.
Container homes,
Yeah. And you have anything you want to add to this?
The packet doesn't have page numbers, but I just wanted to point out that about halfway through this document, this blue container home was on display during the fair housing, or the fair housing event
Yeah, I saw that.
at Allen Chapel. Yeah.
I saw it.
And that's just one of the styles that they had, but that's the container home that was on display.
It's amazing.
Yeah, the possibilities are interesting. And this developer's out of what, where is he located? This road in Maine, Connecticut?
Yeah.
Okay. Florida. What part of Florida, do you know? Daytona
He
Beach?
has an Ormond Beach location. I don't know that he has a Daytona Beach location. The information that he provided in his handout just said that he had an Ormond Beach phone number and location. He didn't provide a Daytona Beach contact.
Okay.
He did mention in his presentation to the commission that there was a project that he did. I cannot remember the location south of Melbourne where he already did a container home, and I don't remember the, I just can't remember the location right now. but I think I emailed it to you, Mr. Chair, the Orman contact
Yes,
information.
I have that. Okay. These commercial structures are really interesting.
It's amazing what they
Absolutely.
put in
Yeah,
those
They
containers.
really are.
They're spacious. I was surprised
Yes.
at some.
And they do have a Daytona location.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really interested in the commercial part. 'Cause
Yeah.
The selling the residential that's going to be an effort.
Not only that, I noticed in the packet that you can put wheels on them and have like a food truck, which I thought was ingenious.
Right. Wow. I'm definitely interested in the cost comparison to like a steel building. Because that's something folk are not, I don't see that being pushed much, but when you compare the traditional square foot cost for a site builders over 120, somewhere between 110, 130, $130 a square foot. The steel buildings are around 18 to 25. Yes, yes,
18.
$18 to $25.
Wow.
Whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's something else.
Big difference.
Huge. So you don't, if you got enough paper set aside, you don't need a mortgage, you know?
Right.
You don't. So just something to think about. Now, we didn't, I wanted to have someone from Snap Space to come. We didn't have time to do it this month, but if they're available, I would definitely like for someone from there to come and, if they're available. If they're not, they're not. But if we can ask them to come before us, how do y'all feel about that?
Oh,
I think that would be
I'm with
great.
it.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think that would be a wonderful idea.
So if we can just reach out to them. If they say no, they say no. You know, but if we don't ask, we won't know.
That's true.
So, because like I said, I like the commercial part there. These are nice.
I can envision a whole retail environment, a little retail city
Yep.
with using
It
the.
gives a whole nother definition of a strip mall too.
Yep.
Yeah, it sure does.
Absolutely.
And with the technology, you can camouflage almost anything to look like it was site built in the first place.
High-rise apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that's awesome.
But so if we could do that, if we can request that somebody from there, if they're available, to come and speak before us next month, that'd be
Not-
great. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I know the gentleman. the
Oh, you know
CEO.
him?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, any other recommendations on item 9A? All right, we'll move to new business 9B. Discussion, recommendation on future locations for the Welcome to Midtown sign. Very quickly, this was something that, came from us via a former member, and I'm gonna ask them to come up and kind of give us a 1 to 2 minute update on how this ended up. That one there, right?
He doesn't know 2 minutes.
You caught that?
Stop.
I do too. Pierre Lewis. I guess the point that I was getting to Mr. Chair, to the board too. The clock's down. I go for 102. But the thing what I was looking for was that when I identified this or mentioned this the last time we had the meeting, what I was looking for as the sign that's right in front of me says, "Heart, I love Daytona Beach." It has signage there that gives a level that says that it's got identity. Even when I put on Facebook today, I saw a sign at the renovated Dickerson Center. And in large, it's got the Daytona Beach sign that's there. Beach Street, when you walk up there, it's got signage down there that says you're at the Esplanade. You go to One Daytona, it's got signage that's there. I don't think necessarily, I'm not looking for something that probably say, "Welcome to Midtown," but something in that area where it knows that when someone drives in the area, they're in Midtown. That sign locations, I was thinking, my suggestion would probably be at where Nova Road and ISB intersects, because Midtown, the cutoff on the east side is at Charles Street. So someone on that side doesn't go all to Seagrave, but another sign that's probably there, even on the sign where it's the checkers, or somewhere sort of peppered throughout. If we're looking at locations, Martin Luther King, where Mary McLeod Bethune intersects, that's there. a sign that's there that just says Midtown itself. Doesn't have to be broad and say, welcome to Midtown, because it sounds like Smallville, but something that says, okay, yeah, you're in Midtown. I'm sorry?
Watch your mouth.
Okay, something like that. But something that says you're in the Midtown area that gives the area a sense of identity. I think it would be great. And I think those locations would be the great locations. That's Nova Road, ISB, Mary McLeod Bethune, and Martin Luther King, where they intersect right there, right where that checkers, especially where the checkers is, because the 4 squares, according to the Midtown Master Plan, right there is supposed to be an area that identifies you're in our area too. Right. So that in that place would be great because the Midtown Redevelopment Plan talks about that. And you mentioned earlier, here's my copy of the corridor study that talks about that. And the weight trim report, but that's, I'll say that for the minute, so just looking at my notes about that one. But those are the places I looked, and I think I got it in that time period, Mr. Chair.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
All right, so we understand what ex-member, former member Lewis was talking about, which is a great idea. I want to ask staff, what do you all think about that? Is that something that's doable? We pick out some sites? Is that something?
I knew it.
Boy, I got to go see Mission Impossible. The before we had that, before there was a logo that we used at a historic place that was used for sort of Midtown. I think that if they're going to do that, it would behoove the board to decide on the sign or the logo or something they're going to, you know what I'm saying, for Midtown. Because the other one that was there was sort of one that they used, it was for historically black area, but it didn't say, historically African American, I'm sorry, but it didn't necessarily denote Midtown. It's Washington shaking it, so you know what I'm talking about, right? Mm-hmm. So it needs to be something that sort of looks like Midtown. That's all it's just. Thanks.
We'll get with Public Works. We'll see what we can come up with in-house and bring some samples to you. And I won't promise it next month, but we'll work on some samples to bring to you.
Okay, that's great. We good with that?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. We're doing pretty good. We at 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Real
Public
good.
comments. Yes, sir.
Mr. Puckett.
Wait, that's it? Okay. Mr. Lewis, you're up.
It looks like something, but it really isn't. This goes in my bed. Pierre Lewis, 130 South Franklin Street. I was good to see some of the information that was passed to the board today, at the meeting today, the studies. I just wanted to remember that, let the board know, remember that before the corridor study, that one that was here that had that was there before, there was what's called the Wade Trim Report.
Oh, yeah.
And that, yes, is what you're doing. That Wade Trim Report was what gave credence to this study to be done right there, because a lot of references you'll see when you get into there talks about this Wade Trim Report. And this really analyzes a lot of the demographics that's in the area. That report right there is one that you should actually, and I'm sorry when a friend mentioned that they wanted a copy of that, and I forgot. I looked at the closet, my Midtown closet in the house, and it had there it is. I'll put that there. The other thing I wanted to mention was that I'm an IT guy, and I'm a geek by trade, you know that. So I looked at some of the new AI programs that's out there, artificial intelligence programs, and I thought to myself, wow, how could I use AI, or some of the new municipalities are utilizing AI to assist their efforts. So what did I do as a geek? I took the 20 goals that are on the Midtown Redevelopment Plan and said, okay, computer, create an implementation schedule to create for a 5-year plan to execute those 20 goals. And this is what I have right here as a report. And it really goes in depth about some pointers that you could use to say, conduct comprehensive study. I did one for that. I did another one that goes and said, develop a flood mitigation plan for the Midtown CRA community. The next one was, develop an implementation scanner to put the utilities underground. Since I almost love that one. And then the other one says, how do I develop a plan to increase the tax base in the Midtown CRA? And it came out with input of all those different things to say that, listen, we've got those studies and you've got those goals that are there. Because when I looked at it again, the goals that are in the Midtown redevelopment plan, or those 20 goals that's there, then all of a sudden it skips to the objectives. However, the objectives that are in that area plan actually denotes information from the master plan, not the redevelopment. You see what I'm getting at? So there's not really a plan of execution to say, how do we accomplish those 20 goals in those steps? And you look at that. So because I didn't want people to be left out, I did make 10 copies for everybody. Everybody, so it's pass around their paper clip, and everybody would have a copy of those 4 different ones that are there. And remember, and I'll close with this. Remember with AI, as we that, because I wanted to make sure, because different municipalities are using it. You got copyright infringement, stuff like that. It's nothing to be published and all of that. You see that it's in the news. However, I thought that it will get those creative juices flowing. You can look at some projects, look at some approaches to that, and maybe as you start to plan and generate ideas, those things will help you to crystallize some of those plans and stuff like that. That's why I did that, but you can look at it at your leisure, but that's what it's there for. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
All right, any comments from that? Good. Now we're on member comments, board member comments. I'll start with Ms. Bonner.
Well, overall, I think that the meeting was very productive as usual, and I think that we got a lot done in a short time period. So those are my comments.
Ms. Richardson.
Wonderful meeting, and look forward to moving forward with all of our ideas and things that we want to achieve with this, with our board. I'm looking forward to all of the changes that's happening in the Midtown area. Very excited about that. So I'm really ready to work.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Thompson.
Yeah, I just want to say something to the staff. I want to, as we are getting to within a month of what we're going to do, something innovative with this piece about the story of Midtown. I just want to make it clear that we're going to try to attack 2 different things here. Number one, we're going to illustrate the story of Midtown, the people and the buildings, which make Midtown what it is. But secondarily, at the end of each performance, we're going to have a talk-back session. We're going to bring some stakeholders to the stage who we hope and pray will be inspired by these stories, which inspired me to write these stories, and our team. And from that, we hope to engage in dialogue from key stakeholders to find out what do we do to reinvest, redevelop Midtown while all of this growth is going on around us. What do we do to protect this crown jewel of Daytona Beach? And so some of you will be asked to participate. And I know that the staff is going to be working, and I have to tip my hat to Michelle and Ken and the city manager. Tomorrow I'll be meeting with Susan Sorbonne and her staff. And I'm encouraging all of you to really get out, because this is a rare opportunity for all of us to engage people in a manner in which they've never been engaged. Most times it's either a document or something else negative that brings everybody together. Now we've got some characters who are going to speak for us, and we hope to inspire us to find out what can we do to change our city and to reverse a cycle. And we've got some synergy in the offices now. And we've seen, and what you said today, Sean, is so, you stated it so eloquently. We've seen progress. We've got the mayor of Midtown who comes every week and gives us data and jewels. It's real, you know. We've got a city attorney who he had the deputy city, now he's the city attorney, who now has seen what we have been doing, and now when he steps into his new role, I think he has a firm understanding, you know, of what this board here really, I think the heart of the board. We're serious about what we want to do for our district, you know. And so I would encourage each of you to spread the word, not for Lynn, but for Midtown.
Yeah. I'm gonna put it on my website, so it's gonna be up there. Don't worry about that. I do have a question for you. Have you thought about incorporating, not in this, but during the discussion session, some kind of video, like they got Google Earth, they got the drones that they can base. I envision, you're showing some aerial of Tanger, some area of all the development that's going on, and then zoom into Midtown and say, now what we're gonna do with this?
Well, I don't know, I gotta get with Ken and this shit. I don't know if we're gonna do shock and awe. You know what I'm saying? We really, because I don't think that, the most important thing we wanna do is engage and wake up the citizenry of Midtown. Because in talking with the city manager, and Michelle and Ken about programs, and the communications plan, a lot of the residents of Midtown are not taking advantage of the programs that are available. And so we've got to engage them, and we've got to awaken this energy of the people of Midtown and make sure that we are all on the same page. Once we excite everybody, there's nothing more powerful than a people who are united, educated, engaged, and really excited about the growth of their own community. But I don't think, I don't know. We've got to rely on staff to figure out.
You know how my mind goes, man.
Right.
You know how my mind goes. I'm gonna stop. But
You got the bow down too.
I resemble that remark.
No. Yeah, you do.
But everybody's got to show up for this. I mean, if you don't do nothing else, you got to show up for this right here. This is one of those million-man march kind of things. You want to be when they're talking about it, you don't be hearing about it. You want to be adding to the conversation. Yeah, I was there, so this is what I got from it. So I got to pump the word about this right here. This is huge. All right, Ms. Shepherd, what you got to say?
Good evening. Thank you, sir. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much and show my gratitude to staff. You folks are very, very, very hardworking. Thank you for everything that you do. Michelle and Ken and the attorney, everybody. Thank you.
Angie?
Yeah. I'm incredibly, incredibly encouraged and inspired by the progress we've made tonight. I believe I can see our progress. In just a short time I've been with us, I can see it. I'm looking forward to the possibilities. Thank you.
Ms. Washington.
I don't want to be like Mr. Pierre. I'm going to try to taper my words. I'm going to taper my words, but I look forward to coming to the meetings. I've seen a change in the way the meetings are held, period, which makes a difference. And I'm looking forward to us continually growing. The activities, things defined as to what we're going to do when we get here. Looking forward to Lynn's project, knowing Lynn since before he was born. That gives you an idea how old he is. And just thinking about the things that we did as kids. I was an older one. Lynn played with the little children because that was his age. But just to think about it, I revert back the corner of, and that's why I was so interested when we wanted to name the street after Dr. Bethune, having lived it and walked it with her. My grandfather ran the cab stand that was right there on the corner of 2nd Avenue, and it was 2nd Avenue and
Rose.
Not Rose. It's MLK now. Where Bethune Campbell, yeah.
Campbell Street.
What is now the what is the registrar's office and whatever else that that was a food store. It had a vegetable store. First it was my granddad's cab stand. Then it was Cleaners, Bob Wright's Cleaners, and then it was a vegetable store, and then like a little food store, like a 5 and dime. Everybody went in before they went to the movie, which was right on the other side of the street. You're right in that neighborhood. So that was the area that we actually played in. And when you got out of the movies on Saturday at 3 o'clock, you went to Mrs. Bethune's house because Mrs. Bethune would have drinks and cookies for you, and she kept you busy till your mamas came to pick you up. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this coming. There's a lot that's in that move that will be in that play that people can reflect back on.
Right.
And really see what Daytona was like, because it was a hustling, bustling city. And at the time, what was the name of this? Was it 2nd Avenue then? 2nd Avenue, on the Ave. Everybody was on the Ave then, yep.
Right.
Yep, looking forward to it.
Yeah. Got me excited.
Yeah.
And I'm not even from here. So that's
I'm telling you, there's a lot going on.
all right. Go. What you got?
Well, Mr. Chair, I think this has been a great meeting, a productive meeting, and I want to commend Lynn Thompson for really working diligently and hard, for this place. So we will try to make sure that we help you advertise it. So you won't only have Ken Thomas. We'll have a whole lot of people there so they can be able to see for themselves. Because I'm reminded that actually Allen Chapel used to be right there.
That's right.
Yeah, it did.
Right.
Used
Second
to be.
Avenue.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what
If you
Allen
didn't
Chapel
belong
used
to
to
Allen
be.
Chapel, you weren't
Yeah.
having church.
Yeah. That's
Church. Stewart was still kind of.
Oh,
Stewart was where the Black Box Theater.
Yeah.
Right there next to Johnny
Yeah.
Fry.
People say.
Yeah, that's where Stewart Memorial
A
was.
friend of mine.
Yeah.
And Allen Chapel was the church that I was raised in.
That's
I'm
right.
telling you
Born
now.
and
Went up the
baptized.
stairs, and
Yeah.
it was a little holding area that you could not go into the sanctuary
That's right.
without putting
Without
a
something
dollar
on
in
your
it.
That's right.
And they fed just downstairs.
Downstairs, that's right. That's
Renee, I didn't know that you remember all of that.
You know, and it's really funny because
Yeah.
I was telling somebody a couple of weeks ago, at that time, my grandmother lived in, they recently built South Street Project. And my grandmother she had 5 grandkids that stayed with her every weekend. She got us up every Sunday morning, and we walked from South Street Project to Allen Chapel.
Yeah.
Because she led the line with the choir. She was
That's
number
it.
1, and we didn't go to church late.
right.
So you can imagine, and she and heels, and walked back home, and never gave it a second thought.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah. So it's great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
But Mr. Chair, let me also commend you for really pushing that this board needs to look at, helping those who are the most vulnerable, those that, are being taken advantage of. So it's our responsibility to be able to look out for those in the Midtown area and address the issues that are actually affecting them. So I think we need to continue to press on that. Thank you.
That's what we're here for. I'm gonna mine will be basically our follow-ups, what we talked about tonight. What I have is that staff will reach out to the container homes reps and ask them to come to our meeting next month. There will be, between Ms. Kirk and other staff members, they're gonna find out what's going on with the vacant lot next to Ms. Washington's parcel and what's gonna happen with that. Because you mentioned that, the city has a program where they donate or at least offer for sale vacant lots that's next to, thriving lots, whatever. So they will come back with that. As far as the narratives for each of the categories on the needs plan, staff will reach out to Ms. Hardy to make sure that she's on board with that. And Member Magala will get his narrative to the staff as well.
Yeah.
And Ms. Bonner will take what I put together for our small business infrastructure and the 2 steps that I have in there and match her narrative with my narrative and make sure I guess there'll be a 3rd step.
Correct. Yeah.
That represents her part of it. And so she'll bring that to she'll have that prior to the next meeting, and that'll probably be part of your packets. Did I miss anything? That's obviously everybody push the chance for redemption. Push that. And it'll be 3 weeks after, I guess, our next meeting, 2 weeks after our next meeting, so we'll get a chance to pump it up again next month and stuff. And staff, any comments? City Attorney, again, this is your first official, because I don't think.
I think maybe second.
You had been appointed then at the last meeting?
I think so.
Okay, I apologize.
But I don't know about.
You keep it so low key,
Right.
so, but again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'm not politically correct, you know that by now. And so what I tell you always come from my heart. I don't care who it hurts. We could have done a lot worse than you.
Thank you. My wife says the same thing. And
happy.
so I feel very good about that.
From my interaction with you, you don't have a political bone in your body.
No.
Which is what I think all our city attorneys should be about. And so we got a good one with you.
Well, I do want to tell the board I appreciate being at least a part of your process. And it really is interesting, the emphasis of the several comments tonight on this board and the issues with Midtown as being from the heart, because it's it's a worthwhile enterprise, and it's been a nice adventure to be a part of that. Now, I think beginning your next meeting, Mr. Russell will be taking over, but of course, all of our attorneys are always available to all of you for legal assistance. So, thank you.
And welcome again, David, Mr. Russell. We're looking forward to you taking the front seat. And yeah, you're fortunate because you didn't get to witness the way this board used to be. And so with you coming in, it's only gonna go like this. And so what you're hearing is coming from the heart from these members. And whatever your assistance you can provide us to keep us on the straight and narrow. And Ben will tell you, all I'm looking for is make sure we don't violate the Constitution, the Land Development Code, the Florida statutes. That's all I ask. Every now and again we ask for your opinion, but that's really what we want. So, and staff, great job. And with that, all hearts. I'm sorry.
Mr. Public. Yes. No comments? Oh, okay.
With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.